what I say in the dark,
For I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name.
tell in the daylight.
You are mine. When you walk
What
through
you
the
hear in
waters,
whispers,
I'll be with you. You will never sink beneath the waves. Do not be afraid.
proclaim from the housetops.
For I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name.
Do not be afraid of those who kill the body,
You are mine. When the fire is burning all around,
but cannot kill the
you
soul.
will never be consumed by the flames. Do not be afraid. For
If anyone
I
declares
have
himself for me in the presence of men,
I have called you by your name.
I will declare myself to him.
When the fear of loneliness is looming,
In the presence of my Father in heaven.
do not be afraid. For I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. When you dwell in the exile of the stranger, remember you are precious in my eyes. Do not be afraid. For I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. You are mine, oh my child, I am your father, and I love you with a perfect love. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine.
Hello, Monsignor Daniel McHugh. Reflection for the 12th week of the year. Do not be afraid. As I watch the news in these days, it is clear that we live in what I would call a disturbed world. We can point to many different happenings here, at home and abroad, that are unsettling. Just as we seem to be overcoming, or at least learning to live with the coronavirus, we have had the shocking pictures of the terrible death of George Floyd in the United States. In its wake, we can see the country we live in being rocked by the questioning of our values and way of life. Even our iconic wartime leader, Winston Churchill, is drawn into the discussion about racism and the role of slavery, and his memorial in Parliament Square was defaced by demonstrators. In this respect, I found an interview with his niece, one of the Soames family, very helpful. She said he had feet of clay, but he was also a great leader at a critical time in our history, and that is why we honor him. It was her recognition of his weakness that was so important. She didn't deny he had racist attitudes. That is something we have only come to realize is unacceptable in more recent days. But he had indeed been crucial in the defeat of a Nazi fascist regime. We do indeed need to look at ourselves in so many different ways and repent of what is wrong. We also need to speak for what is good and true with courage. On Friday, the 19th of June, we celebrated the solemnity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. It is now the World Day of Prayer for the sanctification of priests, and I visited the shrine of the Sacred Heart at Maryvale. now that we can visit churches and chapels once more for prayer. I was watching one of the Maryvale streamed Novena Masses leading up to the solemnity. This was the Mass celebrated by Monsignor Timothy Menezes at St. Chad's Cathedral. He spoke of Maryvale and its role in the diocese, picking up on the fact that St. John Henry Newman had lived there. This is an excerpt. The connections between Maryvale and the life of St. John Henry Newman are very strong. Newman spoke of wanting an educated laity, and I would like to take this opportunity this evening to invite you, the people of God, to say yes to taking the next stage on your journey of faith. Maryvale's greatest work is the nourishing of faith of adults. Please take the time to find out about Maryvale and its possibilities. When we began the Institute of Adult Education at Maryvale in 1980, one of our principal aims was to, as St. Paul says, to empower people to give reason for the faith that is in you. And when Jesus says, "Do not be afraid, if anyone declares himself for me in the presence of men, I will declare myself for him in the presence of my Father in heaven." One of the most important resources in our armory in these days is knowing our faith. The other is being close to the heart of Jesus. Maryvale brings these two together. We are blessed to have many wonderful mentors, guides, in standing for the faith in our land. Two of the most famous have their feast on Monday the 22nd of June, St. John Fisher and St. Thomas More. At a time when many went with the flow and abandoned the Catholic Church, they stood up for the unity of the Church around the successor of St. Peter. Of Fisher, St. Thomas More wrote, "I reckon in this realm no one man in wisdom, learning, and long-approved virtue together meet to be matched and compared with him." Of Thomas More, his friend Erasmus wrote, "No one is less led by the opinions of the crowd, yet no one departs less from common sense." In 1535, they shed their blood for Jesus Christ, at the time when secular powers were moving against the authority of Peter in the matter of church teaching on marriage. If we are to witness to the world our values, our belief in the way of Jesus, we all need first to recognize our own frailty. Every member of the church must hear that call, that we play our part as a community in building a more just, a more forgiving and loving world, one that is less disturbed, more at peace individually and with each other, one where racist attitudes are challenged, not hidden. There are more unsettling times to come. Do not be afraid.
When you dwell in the exile of the stranger, remember you are precious in my eyes. Do not be afraid, for I have redeemed you. I have called you by your name. You are mine. You are mine, oh my child. I am your father, and I love you.